In this video, we are going to be going through the settings screen. We're going to go over pretty much every setting that you can set for ThunderPOS, what they do, when you might use them. For obvious reasons, this is going to be quite lengthy. This is going to be part one. It'll probably be either 2 or 3 parts broken up just to make things a little easier to watch. So we're going to flip over to our VM here. And we are in System Administration and then Settings. We're just going to go down the list here. So we're going to start in Hardware. Our settings here are for our printer drivers. The receipt printer driver is used for printing receipts. It is not used for printing professional style invoices. That will be the report printer. The report printer is also used for printing any other full-sized documents that you may print through the software. And then the label printer is your printer that's going to print when you print labels. Under serial printers, if you are using a direct-to-com receipt printer, in which case you can set the port there, then these settings are the commands that will get sent to enact certain functions. This can also be true if you're using the system style of receipt for a USB receipt printer where it bypasses the driver. These settings will depend on your printer. You may want to contact support if these are relevant, but you can try the pre-filled in defaults, which are usually correct for the most common printers. Under additional hardware, we've got a few settings related to other things. For the batch scanner, you have the choice of either using the direct communication with the Cipher Lab, which is what was done for many years, or using the flat files. These days, we really recommend setting up to use the flat files, where you export a text file from your batch scanner and then bring in that file to the software. If you're using direct flat file, then the other two settings don't matter. Otherwise, these need to be the port and the speed of that Cipher Lab 8000 series if you're using that. The display pole is related to customer display pole settings. So you'll choose the type here, whether it's one of the actual like LED displays or it's the rear display, or you're using the Genius credit card integration and want to do display things through that. You'll just need to select the type. And then if you're using one that's connected through a serial port, which is one of those 2-line displays, you'll need to put in the serial port. Right, under receipt here, print receipts will simply decide whether a receipt automatically prints at the end of an invoice or not. Receipt style, you can decide between your standard receipt, which is 3 inches, full, which is the standard receipt formatted for printing onto a full-size sheet of paper, full professional, which is actually allows you to have a kind of larger logo. It's the estimate style, kind of suitable for mailing, or the 2-inch receipt, which is for a 2-inch wide receipt printer. You can determine the number of receipts that print. This can be more for credit cards if you're wanting to keep a signed copy. If you're using a USB receipt printer, you can determine the font that is used. If you select System, it's going to directly connect to the printer. It's going to use what's built into the printer. That will change the appearance pretty drastically of the receipt. The others are simply the font at which it will print the normal USB print. And then the font size allows you to adjust that. We highly recommend not going up in font size, but you can go down a little bit. The repair disclaimer, that is what is printed below the signature line on repair estimates. If you're not doing repairs, you don't really have to worry about that. Include discount information will show off any discounts that are being applied to the particular item, including any promotions that are applied. Print customer balance will determine whether, if the customer has a non-zero account balance, that will print onto the receipt or not. Same with printing signature line for non-chip credit cards. That will determine whether that's printed. The logo style for professional invoice, if you're using the professional invoice, you can put a logo up on there. It can either replace the address block or it can appear to the right of it. And you can set that here, of course. Printing the rewards information, that will print any bonus points they may have onto the receipt. If you're not using bonus points, it won't have any effect because it will only print it if they have a non-zero balance. Print codes for the loyalty site on receipt. That will actually, if you are cloud only, that is not a setting. If you're in a local database, that will allow you to print the code at the bottom of the receipt they can put in to sign up at loyalty, so you can customize that message a little bit. Credit card disclaimer, that's relevant for the signature line. It's what appears under the signature line. And then you can print signature line for trades, and similarly you have a disclaimer there that you can put in. Under notes, we have general invoice notes. You can get 10 lines of up to 42 characters each. Some receipt printers may not be able to print that width. For example, if you're using a 2-inch receipt printer, I believe most of those can only go to 27 or 28 for the built-in fonts. So you may just have to adjust based on that, but the hard limit is 42. If you're not using either system or direct-to-com, you can also put a coupon on the code. This will appear at the bottom of the receipt. It will appear in slightly larger font. Under store information, this is where you will typically put in your company name and then your address and phone number. It appears at the top of receipts. The company name also appears on labels. The hours of operation are simply for use on the scheduler. It determines by default when it will allow you to schedule employees and resources. Remind me to make a backup after whatever time. That only applies if you're not on the cloud, and it will simply, after you log in, give you a nag screen if you have not made a backup through the system in a certain amount of time. So use this if you're kind of forgetful about making backups and you're not on the cloud. Under register information, you can see but you cannot change your register ID. Enable pop-up keyboard and numpad where available. That will allow you to use a touch screen to type and put in a number value in relevant text boxes. But it does make it so those pop up when you click on them, so just be aware of that. Open a register on login makes it so that the register screen automatically opens when you first log into the software and you don't have to hit the register button. The picture directory will be where pictures get saved if you're saving locally. It's also where, if you're using one of the databases that caches pictures, where those will temporarily be saved, at least within a subfolder in that folder. Use cloud images. If you are a cloud customer, you can save images to the cloud instead of to your local computer. There is a quota, a limit to the amount of space that you're going to have there. If you run over that, you're just going to end up needing to contact us. You can purchase additional space, or rent it rather, because it is a monthly fee for that. Run database cleanup. This actually can be used if you manage to import some data that is improper in some way and is causing damage to the software. It will attempt an auto repair. If that doesn't fix the issue, you will probably need to reach out to support, but this gives you the ability to try and make a fix. And then migrate images to the cloud. That's for a very specific situation. If you have been using pictures locally for items and then you move to the cloud, then you can use that in order to move those images up to the cloud as well. Under taxes, you can set your tax rates and their descriptions. The descriptions do go on the receipt, so you definitely do want to fill those in. Always round up tax to nearest penny, or to the next penny rather. You will want to do that if your state law says that you must do that. That's something you should consult local tax authorities about, or an accountant. If you call us and ask, should I have this on or not, we're not going to know. If do not charge tax one on tax two, and tax three on used items. This is almost certainly not going to apply to you unless you know that it does. You probably do not want to check this. There are places where used items do not have sales tax applied to them. Those places are, generally speaking, not in the U.S. if you're in a place that has sales tax in the U.S. So that's more for a couple of our international users. Um, this option determines when you are taking a trade in against a purchase, whether the purchase is taxed for the full amount or if it's taxed for the amount after trade ins. And this is different from state to state. This is very important to get right for calculating sales tax. So you want to make sure that you have set this correctly based on your local law. Um, the default setting is that it is on the full sale. So if you sell a $20 item and they trade in $15, then the sales tax is on $20. Um, that's simply because if there is an error in tax collection, it's probably better to collect too much than not enough from the point of view of the store. But the other option would be that, if you select deduct trade-ins from sales for determining tax, then in the example I just gave where you've traded in $15 worth of stuff towards a $20 item, then you would only be charged sales tax off the $5 difference. So this is where we're going to end part one of this. You can continue on with used options onwards in part two.